Welcome everyone to another episode of Love Island Cast USA. I am Chris Phelps and my co-host is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hey there, Chris. Really good to speak to you again and talk a bit of Love Island USA.
Yeah, well, Dave, we have the recoupling in today's episode. What did you think of the whole drama? And it was done pretty quick in the show, to be fair. It wasn't dragged out to the end. It was done, and even I think the voiceover guy was actually caught off guard as well. He did drop it in there. What were your first initial impressions? Did anything really shock you?
Well, there is one thing, but I think more so than anything, I was thinking, my God, what has happened to my life? Because I think we called it on the show yesterday, didn't we? And we said, you know, there were some things, a lot of things, that a lot of couplings which were obvious that were going to happen, like Ray and Kyra. That was obviously going to happen, as well as, you know, Zak and Elizabeth. There's nothing going on there. But we did say, you know, probably Kyra would couple up with Eric. You know, they did drag it out a little bit, but I think it was pretty obvious, you know, as the show went on, she was going to go that way. And I think I said, you know, Katrina could, as a long shot, go for Cashel, and she did. And I have to say, Winston, bye-bye. We won't miss you, I don't think.
No.
And we'll see you on the next reality TV show, I guess.
Yep, I think you're right. I think the girls were talking. I'm not sure if it was Elizabeth saying, I think we should keep Winston. You know, you should keep with. They're having a bit of a chat, weren't they? And
yeah,
she mentioned Cashel, and then they said Winston, which I thought was a bit off. I was thinking, wow, that's a bit bizarre. Because if they've all been together, you'd think they'd be like a real pact of trying to keep like the originals together. But she obviously didn't think that. And, you know, that's her opinion. She's totally entitled to it. But I don't think Winston really offered much. He got in with Marley. She's obviously gone. If he does like Marley, he did say to her, I'll give you a number and all this. So maybe they're going to get together outside the villa. I think it was just right. I think Cashel's got the wrong end of the deal, I think, with Kyra, because she's give out all these different vibes, hasn't she, with him? And not necessarily just her, but I think because Eric's come in and he looks composed, he's driven, he's got these businesses, she's obviously not just after somebody for his personality, she's after the whole package. I mean, she's only younger self, isn't she? So it could be a slight bit of immaturity. But as I said yesterday, I think you reap what you sow, and she's picked Eric now. And all I'll say is, don't come to us in 3 or 4 episodes saying that you've made a big mistake and Eric is an absolute tool, because at the moment he looks like a complete bell end to me.
He does. And I think it was very, very subtle, Chris. But I think already we've noticed a slightly different tone with him.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, we were saying about he's got that serial killer vibe, and it's with the tone that he uses in his voice, the cadence of his voice, and it's just a bit too cool. And, you know, he's really relaxed, and, you know, he is Hannibal Lecter, essentially, without the English accent. But I think, you know, as soon as he's coupled up, he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to have to move more of my stuff into your drawers because I've got more clothes than you. Alarm bells, danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah. I think even when he got a text as well, David, he shouts to everyone, over here. And I'm like, that's not really a polite way to speak to everyone, mate.
Yeah, again, he's still the new guy. I do not see that is going to go well. But, you know, it's better that she does that and she actually finds out than she takes, you know, the safe option, sticks with Cashel, even though, you know, he's stuck in the friend zone. And like you said yesterday, you know, she doesn't want him, but she doesn't really want him to go with anyone else either. So stop dicking around with that. Let Cashel crack on with someone else. He thought he was going to be out pretty much, didn't he? So he's got a second chance now. Stop moping around Cashel and start, you know, putting the feelers out for someone else.
Yeah, and I think as well, what's interesting is they've got together, but somebody's going to get voted off in tomorrow's episode as well. So they're motoring along. So all the drama and the sort of sad music we got on tonight's show might mean absolutely bugger all. And that's pretty much what's happened with Winston. He was giving the old Dear John thing yesterday, how he was so traumatised that Marley had gone and he was on his own. And even tonight's episode, he mentioned it. And he's gone anyway. So you know, they might have just reprieved, and that's what I was saying about the 4-week thing doesn't really work, I don't think, in the US, because in the UK, they'd have at least 3 or 4 days, or they'd throw in new villa housemates, wouldn't they, to sort of try and win their hearts and try and couple up. It just, I'm just not getting the logistics of it at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, and absolutely. I hadn't really thought about it until you said to us yesterday that, you know, this compressed format, it's not really working. And again, it is really, really subtle. But I think you're right, because we just don't have time to really, you know, get to love these people, get to love these couples, love to hate other people and other couples. We don't get that time, so we don't get that emotional investment with them. And so if they go, it's like, all right, then, off you go then.
Yeah. And it's weird. It's so strange. I think the girls are slightly feeling a bit of a weird vibe with Kyra, to be honest. I know Alexandra's quite friendly with her, but I don't think a lot of the girls are buying into what's going on with her and Eric. I don't know if it's Eric. Obviously, Elizabeth and Alexandra said they don't like him. And whether she's the type of person where she's stubborn, sort of saying, well, I'm not fucking listening to you. I've got my own opinion, so I like him. And that's fine. If she likes him, it's no one's opinion. We all know that ourselves. There's plenty of times, when I got with Sam, or when, you know, with yourself, in your relationships, when people have gone, well, you know, I don't really like that person or whatever, there's just something about them. I'm sure people have said it about me and you, and it does happen. People make that initial sort of impression, can be sort of life. It can be a life thing where it's like, I just don't like that person, and we all do it in work or whatever. So maybe it's that. She seems very headstrong. It's just that at the moment I can't really see a connection with him. It just, as I said yesterday, it's too clinical for me. It's too cute at the moment. I don't see a Zak and Elizabeth, but then again, Dave, Zak and Elizabeth got called out big time in that game, didn't they? So
they did. So just before we get on to the game and stuff, I do have a little bit of a confession, Chris. And so just after the recoupling, all of the couples went off to bed, and some of them were getting a bit frisky, and you could see Yamen and Asata were getting, you know, quite close there. And Yamen, I have to say, he's done a few things. He's just rubbing me up the wrong way, I think. And I didn't like the way, I think it was Weston he was talking to in the morning, and he was like, oh, yeah, she was shoving her tongue down my throat. Sometimes it's like, look, that's a personal fucking thing between you and your partner. You know what I mean? I didn't like that. He comes across, on some respects, he's like bipolar or something. He's sometimes he appears really mature, and then other times he just seems really immature. And so when he's saying to Asata, you know, he's going on at her about, you know, he was a bit surprised about how kind of heavy she was coming on. And this is where my confession comes in, Chris. I kind of did laugh out loud at the narrator this evening. So again, all the way through the series, it's been slightly off for us. And as Stefan had emailed us in, and I'm sure there's loads of other people as well, they quite enjoy his commentary. But what made me laugh was Yamen says to Asata, says, well, it must have been someone else who put their tongue down my throat. And then straight away the narrator just jumps in, sorry about that. And obviously, just the comment. See, the thing is, a lot of the times it's not the line, it's not the words that they're actually saying, it's the delivery and the timing. And I think there he just nailed the delivery and the timing perfectly. And I did laugh at that. I did think that was pretty funny.
Fair enough. I didn't catch that, to be fair. I probably would have laughed myself. So fair enough, Dave. He can be funny once a series. We'll let him have that. But no, you're right. And talking about Yamen, obviously we're getting to the game. He was called out on the game from the general public for being a player, being a bit of a. And I thought it was bad form what he did, saying about Asata, saying about, oh, so it wasn't you putting your tongue down my throat and all this. And I know she took it as a joke, but I think she was very uncomfortable with it. And he shouldn't have gone around telling all the guys and that. It's like, yeah, we got close, that's it. You don't go around. I thought that was just a bit of a dick move, to be honest. And I think you are right. You picked up on this. I'd seen a couple of things, but never, I said he was a sound guy. I said it yesterday. I wasn't sure on him and questioned it. But I think you're right. I think he is a bit of a player. He's a bit of a bullshitter. And it was wrong to do that. He sort of belittled her, and she deserves better than that because she's been nothing but nice and upfront with him. So, yeah, I think if he's not careful, he could become a bit of a hate figure if you don't sort of stop peeing about, because he's just coming across as a bit of a dick.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, and again, we don't get to vote, do we? So, it's when the voting comes up, that's when you'll see what the American public really thinks of him. But, yeah, I think he is a player. I think a lot of people probably won't forgive him for how he treated Alana right at the end there.
Yeah.
And, as we've said with the UK, for a couple of people, karma's a bitch.
It is. It totally is, Dave. You're correct. And also in the game, as we said before, Zak and Elizabeth have just been called out for being a pair of boring bastards, haven't they? And to the extent that there was 2 or 3 people said it in the game within there. And also, not just that, to be fair, I give Weston full credit. He said, like, the boring. I know Cashel jumped in and went, well, they are boring, but we didn't really realise that they were just completely isolating themselves from the villa. So you get that vibe, don't you? And like one of the lads said, well, they're the type of people, when you want to see Zak, you'll see Elizabeth will be by his side all the time.
Yeah.
But someone did say, like, yeah, but this is the start of his life. He's never been out of Chicago. This is the start of his journey. So if he is going to get with Elizabeth and he's going to move or whatever he's going to do, I know it sounds a bit rich after only 3 weeks, but that's just it. Some couples are like that, Dave. Some couples just are together like that 24/7. You know what I mean? So it works for some, it doesn't work for others. But I just think they are boring from a viewer's perspective, but they are in love. So that is pretty much, you got a bit of a fine line, haven't you? That's what the show's about, really.
Yeah, and I think life's hard, isn't it? I mean, you can never get the balance right. You can't just spend time with your partner. You can't just spend time with your friends. And, sometimes it's too little, sometimes it's too much one way or the other. And so getting that balance right is difficult because, old Dylan and Alexandra, they seem to be getting I think she's getting the feeling that maybe the balance isn't quite right there the other way. But I can't sort of hold anything against Elizabeth and Zak for coupling up and I think they are quite cute together. But, from an entertainment perspective, we want a little bit of drama and entertainment, don't we? So you can see why they are boring. But as we've seen with the other shows, all right, the game is a bit of fun and, some of it's quite brutal. And some of it's just a bit of fun. But what you usually see then is the days after, it's playing on their minds. And it can have big consequences, as these tweets and stuff chew on people's consciousness. And so I think we saw tonight, after that game, I think Zak is really wound up by, the suggestion he's under the thumb of Elizabeth. And so I just wonder, is that going to destabilise them a bit?
It could do. I think you're right. I think you know what I'm a bit wary of, Dave, in doing what all the lads and that have done on the UK one, where they just literally all of a sudden he starts showing an interest in someone else just to rock and spice it up. She'd be devastated if he does that. So I'm not saying he is, but the fact that he's questioning himself is very similar to what we've seen on the UK one, and we know how that's played out as it's still on now. But the lads have just been completely heartless, haven't they, a couple of them?
Yeah, I mean, I hope... Well, I hope from a human perspective he doesn't go down that route. From an entertainment perspective, then it does spice things up a bit, but you could see already he was being a little bit cold towards Elizabeth. Clearly agitated at that suggestion. And I think, you know what, I think because we're a bit older, Chris, it does happen to you over time. I think, when I was younger, what people said would play on my mind a lot more than it does now. Now I have a good, healthy dose of fuck 'em all.
Yeah.
So, and I'll suit me and my family first. I don't know. I just think it could well play on his mind being a young lad there. And it did seem to come a little bit out of the blue, the way the lads were sort of saying, Zak, he never used to, he used to joke. Now he doesn't at all. I think that seemed to come a little bit out of the blue. But again, it's this repercussions of this text game, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the whole point of it, isn't it? The psychological warfare, I suppose. And very, very interesting, Dave. Now, did you see anything else through the show?
Well, again, I didn't quite laugh out loud at this bit, but Cashel clearly liked the text. Not only, it's a double whammy, isn't it? You know, because you've got the public voting or the public tweeting these statements out, and it's the fact that your fellow islanders guess right as well. You know, it kind of validates whatever the kind of usually cruel tweet is suggesting. And I think it was the first one, wasn't it, that came up, that blank is cold. You know, and everyone pretty much guessed it was Kyra. And yep, the answer was Kyra, and Cashel clearly liked that. And he's like, yep, glad everyone else sees it as well. Yep. So I think he does, though. Cashel, mate, you need to get over it now. Yes. Close that door. I know it's a lot easier said than done, but you need to close that door, because if you start coming off bitter, you know, that's not an endearing quality. So
no,
crack on with someone else. And what I don't get is when it was clear to the Islanders Christina was going to have a choice to make because of the way Cashel and Kelsey had grown close together. Christina was sort of cast off in that love triangle, whereas Winston and Cashel didn't really sort of make any suggestion to, you know, like, well, you know, should we just start hanging out, have more chats and stuff, see how it goes? It seemed to be, you know, Cashel was saying, hopefully someone's going to walk right through that door. And it kind of reminded me a little bit. Remember Dumb and Dumber, Chris?
Yeah.
Ever see that?
Yeah.
And right at the end, you know, there's a busload of bikini models park up next to the two blokes, and they open the doors and say, oh, we need a couple of oil boys to oil us up. You know, we're on our tour of America. And Jim Carrey's character is like, you're in luck. There's a town right down there. And it seemed like, you know, no one's actually giving Christina the time of day. And, you know, again, all right, it hasn't clicked with Weston, but, you know, she's a lovely looking girl. She seems to have a nice personality. So I don't get why no one's making a play there. But I guess let's see.
Yeah. No, you're right, Dave. Now, Dave, we've had an email from one of our listeners again. Fantastic email. This was from Jasmine, and it's simply entitled Caro's Voice. She says, hello, guys. Lovely to meet you, and I love the podcast. I wanted to chime in regarding Caro. This is not normal, even in the US. I personally can't stand it. I think she'll learn from the show that this is not a charming trait at all, and she won't find love by using it. Thank you, Yasmin. So that's really good, Dave. Brilliant email. Awesome. I think it just justifies what we said and validates that we're not being a pair of wankers. So,
well, I don't know if the two things are mutually exclusive, to be honest. I think we could still be a couple of wankers, but that's fine. No, and it's interesting where Kyra and Ray are going to go, because, you know, again, they seem to have some sweet little moments. I hope she ditches the baby voice, but I don't really see that. I think Jasmine's right there. I think she'll probably rewatch the show when it's ended, and she might sort of click, and it's like, no, that doesn't. In my head, it looks a lot more cute than it really is.
No, you're right, Dave. You're right. Now, obviously, if you want to contact the show, guys, on Twitter, @Love Island Cast. If you want to email us, please get them emails in. We love reading them and responding. The loveislandcast@gmail.com. If you do like the show, please get onto your podcast catching app and drop us a 5-star review or any sort of star review. It helps us grow, and any feedback is warranted, and we do take it on board. So, Dave, it's been a great show. Things are finally getting there in the third, nearly into the fourth week, the last week of Love Island USA. What have you got for us before we go?
Well, now, Chris, we're a little bit sceptical about Eric and Kyra, but, you know, it could work out there, and it's going to be interesting to see them go on their first date, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm fully expecting Eric's going to dish up some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Goodbye.
Bye.